GM John Spytek met with the media on Tuesday and had a lot of positives to say about Maxx Crosby being on the roster in 2026, but also left the door open just a little bit about a potential trade. That plus more comes up on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for February 25th, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. We're very proud of that fact, and are also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes each and every day, making sure we look good and sound good by way of the YouTube page. And trust and believe, that is not easy. Ari's been putting in a lot of work, a lot of overtime work to make sure that we look good and sound good. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. As we normally do, we'll hear from you, closing things out. Segment number 3, calls, texts, a lot of great feedback. We'll do as many as possible, get as much feedback in as possible as we close out the show. Segment number 2, John Spytek met with the media twice on Tuesday. The first time was at the podium. Everyone was privy to that. But we also got him for, 15, 20 minutes, whatever the case may be, out in the hallway outside of where all the podiums are here at the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, and that's just for the local media. So you'll actually hear that media scrum because that was some, I thought, good stuff, and plus it wasn't something that was broadcasted to everyone. So you'll hear from GM John Spytek coming up, segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it really has to do with Maxx Crosby and whatever the big headlines were coming out of the Scouting Combine on Tuesday. Before we get into any of that, though, I did want to pass along this message. And anytime somebody from Raider Nation sends in a message, a dedication, a shout out, whatever the case may be, special, or maybe something that is, something that's weighing heavy on their heart, I definitely want to make sure to pass that along because this is what it's all about. It's all about you, Raider Nation. Without you, we don't have this show. So this message comes from our guy, Mario. He says, my gratitude goes out to all the active military personnel and veterans that have served in the armed forces. 3 years ago today, my dad passed away. Luis Michael Adame served in the Vietnam War, 1st Cavalry Division, drafted, raised in Compton, born in Mexico. He was born to live the Raider way. Dad, I miss talking Raider football with you, and we'll continue to rep commitment to excellence and just win, baby, for you and the rest of Raider Nation. That means a lot to me. One, obviously, Pop's serving in the military, and that means a lot to me here on the show. I try to make sure that we always shout out the veterans, always shout out the active military, shout out the ones that lost their lives as well, fighting for this great country and allowing knuckleheads like me to be able to do what I do on the daily. And of course, Mario's been rocking with the show for a very long time, and I remember dedicating and shouting out to his pops when he first passed away. So to be able to do it, a few years later, it's really special. So definitely want to shout out to Mario and the family, and of course, Raider Nation is definitely, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Also, not sure what's going on with Spotify. I know a lot of people hit me up by way of Twitter at your boy Q254 and also at Ari Produces on Tuesday and saying, hey, man, Spotify, it's not working. Spotify, it's locked up. You got to be a paid subscriber to get the show. That's not the case. I did some research and I reached out to the powers that be, and they said, Q, that's a Spotify thing. It's not a us thing. Make sure that you have the correct feed. So if anyone has any issues going on with Spotify, and I guess if you're listening to this, I guess you wouldn't have any issues with Spotify. You'd already have the show. But you have to make sure that you have the correct feed. Again, it's a Spotify thing going on. I don't know what it is. You do not have to pay for this show. It is free. You know that. Yes, there's an Everydayers Club that costs money, that has ad-free, but you don't have to do that. This show right here is ad-free, or not ad-free, excuse me, is free, and of course it's got the commercials in it because that's how we got to pay for it. But you should have no problem, but it's a Spotify thing. So just wanted to make sure to let everyone know that. Now let's go ahead and get into the business at hand. John Spytek, bright and early on Tuesday, met with the media at the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis, 10:15 Eastern Time, 7:15 a.m. Pacific Time. And trust and believe, it was a really late night for me, working on the podcast, doing my multiple radio shows, and then getting back to the convention center. But that's what we're here for. Right, we're here to work. And so he met with the media very early. And, of course, not only were they talking about Fernando Mendoza, not only were they talking about all the salary cap space they have, what it's like to be a second-year GM with the team and a second head coach already, But Maxx Crosby, that conversation came up. So here's John Spytek, just a flurry of a few questions about Mad Max while he was at the podium.
Max is an elite player, and I've been very upfront from the start when I got here that we're in the business of having really good players on the team, and we need a lot more of them. And it's hard to build a great team without elite players.
What has been your communication like with Crosby over the last month or so?
Max and I have a great relationship. He's in the building every day, getting healthy right now. We talk on the phone, we text. So I have a great relationship with Max.
John, I know you said you're always listening when it comes to trade offers. Would you consider Max an untradeable player, or are we still entertained?
Right, we're always listening, man.
So everything was going good. Listening to John Spytek talk about Maxx Crosby, and he said before that he was very adamant about players that are still playing around the league that have left the Raiders building, and they don't want to be in the habit of letting really good talent go. Obviously, Max is really good talent. Matter of fact, Max is great talent. He's the best player that the Raiders have. We all know that. So to me, he's saying all that, and I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty much sealing the deal, closing things out, doing exactly what I wanted the Raiders to do and say, yeah, he's not going anywhere. And then Ryan McFadden from ESPN asked him the question about, untouchable and making sure that Max was untradeable. And then that's when he said, I'm always listening. So he left the door open just a little bit to a Max trade. I don't want to try to break down, and I did this on my radio show all day on Tuesday. I don't want to try to break down and read between the lines and figure out what John Spytek, what message he was trying to send. To me, it's not a done deal yet. It's not solidified that Max will be with the Raiders in 2026. It's also not solidified that he won't be with the Raiders in 2026. I think this is still a Maxx Crosby and Raiders decision. I think at some stage of the game, they're all going to sit down and decide if the timelines, as we talked about quite a bit here on the show, match up. And if they do, all is good. If not, well, then they have to make other decisions. And also, I know that there's plenty of teams that have reached out to the Raiders to ask about Maxx Crosby. I know that he said that multiple times when he sat down with Kirk Morrison and others on SiriusXM NFL. He was saying that plenty of people have tried to poach Max from the Raiders, and they keep saying no, no, no. I also think that there's a world where maybe they haven't heard the right offer either to even pique their interest, because the one thing I do know, they're not just going to give him away. They're not just going to say, oh, you want Max? Okay, cool, here he goes. They're going to get premium draft capital in return, as they should. That's the only thing that makes sense if they decide to go there. But there's no saying that they're going to go there. So that's the latest and the greatest. The Maxx Crosby saga lives on. As far as just kind of recapping day one of the scouting combine, we found out that Kirk Cousins, the Falcons are going to release him by the start of the new league year. So he's going to be a veteran quarterback out there on the loose and potentially could pick up with any team. I know a lot of people hit me up and said, what do you think about Kirk Cousins to be a mentor to Fernando Mendoza? John Spytek at the podium pretty much said that, a lot of quarterbacks aren't ready to start day one. It didn't sound like he was confident that the young quarterback in Mendoza, if they do in fact go and draft him, and we all believe that they will, is going to start day one. So maybe Kirk Cousins, a guy that Klint Kubiak has a lot of familiarity with, could start. I just don't know where he's at as far as a player that wants to be a mentor to the next guy, right? I mean, I don't know where Kirk Cousins is as far as, does he think he has a year, 2 years as a bona fide starter in the league? If he does, it wouldn't make sense to go pick him up. But if he feels like he could be a guy that can hold, the spot down for 6-8 weeks, maybe even a full year, if so be it, right? Then okay, cool. But I just don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. But obviously he's got a lot of familiarity and has had a lot of success with Klint Kubiak. Tua, we found out from the Dolphins GM that he's on the trade block. And then we found out, which was, I think, the biggest news, Sean Payton has handed over the play calling duties to Davis Webb, who's offensive coordinator. If you remember, Davis Webb, the Raiders interviewed him first to be their potential head coach. They interviewed him by way of Zoom. We all talked about Davis Webb and the fact that we thought that he could be one of the leaders in the clubhouse. He went down all the way to the wire. Then he pulled his name out of the hat. And the one thing I was sure, as my name is Q, that, oh, man, Sean Payton is not giving up his play calling duties. So, yeah, Davis Webb's going to go back to Denver, and he's going to be the OC, but he ain't going to get play calling duties. Ha! Surprise, surprise. He's the play caller for the Denver Broncos. That was probably the biggest thing that I learned on Tuesday at the Scouting Combine. Really a big surprise as far as I'm concerned. What I also learned is that Klint Kubiak will not be at the podium today. He'll actually meet with the local media, including myself, at a different location. So a handful of us will have a little roundtable session like we've had the last couple of years with either Antonio Pierce, Pete Carroll, whoever the head coach may be, Josh McDaniels. We've had those kind of, sessions with all those guys. We're going to get that opportunity with Klint Kubiak, but he will not be at the podium, which is another surprise. I thought that the first-year head coach would definitely be there, but again, he's not one of those guys that wants to stand there and hold court and have a lot of conversations. He'd rather talk ball. So we're going to talk ball with him. We'll do that in our own location, and, of course, we'll bring that to the show as well coming up tomorrow. Coming up in segment number 2, John Spytek. He's doing the same thing that Klint Kubiak, or he did the same thing that Klint Kubiak is going to do today, and that's meet with the local media off to the side. You'll hear that conversation. We'll do it coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors we have here on the show, and that is 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. Now, I'm just simple. I like the OG flavors, cherry, grape, berry, but there's so many to choose from. Cotton Candy, Confetti Craze, I mentioned those, Fruity Rainbow. They also have other ones like Strawberry Banana, Hawaiian Breeze, Apple Peach Mango, Tropical Burst, Strawberry Watermelon. Like, what are we doing? They've got a flavor for every style, every kind of mood that you're in. Whatever it is you want, they have it for you. And 5-Hour Energy Shots give you a boost with zero sugar. And I'll tell you, here at the Scouting Combine, days start early and they end really late. So I wish I had a big, huge supply of 5-Hour Energy on the table right beside the Indiana Convention Center where the Scouting Combine is going on. Like I said, long hours, long days. It's a labor of love, but we definitely could use a little bit of energy in our life. Right now, find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy Shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Again, 5hourenergy.com or find them on Amazon. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Always appreciate the opportunity being here at the Scouting Combine. Always appreciate having the opportunity to meet with the GM or the head coach, and both when it comes to the silver and black. We'll meet with Klint Kubiak later on today, but got to meet with John Spytek not once but twice on yesterday. Had a few really good, questions thrown out there to him, and again, I thought that the little media scrum that we had off to the side was full of some really good stuff that you didn't hear at the podium. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Here is the second little huddle that we had with John Spytek on Tuesday at the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis.
How quickly can you kind of turn a roster around when you have as many free agents as you guys do? Does that kind of help fast track the rebuilding type process?
I'm not into quickly turning around. I'm into turning it around the right way. So, I think you can see this league every year. There's teams that rise fast and fall fast, and we're trying to rise and stay there.
John, speaking of the free agents, the handful of free agents on the roster right now, just what are your thoughts on Eric Stokes and how he played this year? And is this someone you could possibly come back to Las Vegas next season?
Yeah, we've had good dialogue with Eric about coming back. We're going to keep working this week. I thought he played well this year. He was healthy, which has been something in the past that, he's kind of nipping the bud a little bit, but he played 16 of the games this year, and super happy with him. He competed, he did what I knew he was capable of when I evaluated the player coming out, and I'd love to keep him around.
Obviously, you were at the national championship game. What were your impressions of just how Fernando played, but also his teammates around him and how they played?
Yeah, I thought it was just there was a lot of great players on that field, which you'd expect in a game like that. And, I enjoyed watching all of them kind of compete at that level and, make the plays when a lot was expected of them in the biggest moments. That's what you're looking for. We're looking for guys that have kind of proven that in the biggest moments they don't blink, and it was awesome all the way around.
John, when you're building a roster, every coach is different. Arm lengths, heights, whatever, at what positions. How much is that the frustrating part year to year, why you want stability so you're not changing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think from just an organizational standpoint, what are we looking for globally on a player? Not just arm length or speed and all that, or vision, like this guy's got to be this to run an X, or this kind of back, or this kind of left tackle. I think it helps the scouts speak the same language as we grade players the same year after year after year. The coaches, we all know what we're looking for, and there's just a lot less that goes into it. There's just, check box, as opposed to, trying to figure out what's the right perfect arm length or play style or intelligence.
John, I know there's no end-all be-all to all this, but how much has the playoffs, the college football playoffs, benefited or helped evaluation, especially when the quarterback, when you see them do it week after week against teams that are zeroing in on them, preparing for them, and on the biggest thing?
I think the biggest thing, Vinny, is just those are really good games. When we go to watch any player, right away we try to go watch them play against the best teams or the best players. If you're watching an edge rusher, like let's watch them against the best left tackle if we can find one. Well, in those games they're playing against a bunch of NFL players, and so there's still guys on those teams that aren't going to play in the NFL, but there's just more of it, and the stakes are high, and lots required of them to win those games, and so it's helpful that way. And then there's just more games to watch too. Now there's 16 games for us to watch on Indiana and Miami, which is fun.
Fernando performed at a pretty high level in those games, in those big stages. What did you take away from that experience watching them up close?
Just they kept winning. Kept winning, kept playing even when the expectations got high. He didn't blink, and just like a lot of those players on both those teams. It was that game that I got to go to in Miami was a wonderful football game. I was super privileged to be there to watch all those guys compete.
John, what dialogue or any dialogue you had with Geno Smith since the season has ended?
I've not talked to Geno since the season's ended. He's training. I've seen videos of him training, and I know he's feeling good. And we'll talk soon here.
I was wondering, how would you put into perspective the season he did have? I know he had issues with turning the ball over at the same time that the team had also struggled in terms of pass blocking. So how would you kind of categorize?
Yeah, it's never all on the quarterback. It feels like that sometimes. I know Geno felt like that too. Just the weight of the position, and it's, it means a lot to him, and I respect him for that. And obviously you guys all know the quarterback gets more than his fair share of the blame and more than his fair share of the fame. It's just what goes with the position. But we didn't help Geno in a lot of places too. I got to do a lot better job in that space. And he struggled, but it wasn't for lack of work ethic and trying or care. He worked his tail off. I watched it every day.
You were here a year ago. You had just taken this job for the first time. What have you learned maybe about yourself or about the whole process over this year? Just keep working, just kind of hang in and take the highs and the lows the same, and a belief in myself that I got to get the right people around me, which I think I did, especially with the draft process now with Brian Stark and Anthony Patch and Brandon Hunt that weren't here last year. But we got a great group of scouts, and I feel like we're in a much better place as an organization to knock the free agency and the draft out of the park.
Took a little while for Charles and Caleb to get on the field, but they did, and they played pretty well when they were on the field. Did they do enough to show you that they are viable potential to fight for starting jobs this year?
Yeah, I've always believed in them. That's why we took them when we took them, and it was good to see them get a chance to play. And we've got a lot of young pieces on that offensive line too. They've all got to play better for sure. But I'm excited about their potential. I'm excited about their potential in this offensive style that we're going to play with. They're athletic, they care, they can run into space, and they've got to prove it though. It's a huge offseason for both of them. They've got to work their tails off. They've got to get stronger. They got to get a little bit bigger. But I'm excited about where they're at.
Rick Dennison, he's done it at a high level for a long time. How much do you think he'll bring to the table in terms of that development?
He's got a great resume. He's won his fourth Super Bowl. Everywhere they go, they run the football well, and they protect the quarterback too. So I'm excited about Rico. I got a chance to work with him for 1 year in Denver in 2015 when Coach Kubiak came there. So he's got a big job in front of him. We got to get that group playing to the level that they need to be for us to win more games.
Johnny, what you mentioned when it comes to turning a franchise around, you mentioned the Patriots and the Commanders in your press conference, how they had top 5 picks, lots of cap space, and were able to turn things around fairly quickly. Obviously, you're not in those front offices, but when you kind of observe how they moved within their organizations to turn things around, what are some similarities that you see that you may try to take and do here?
I don't know if I'm trying to take or do anything from those guys. I think that was just an example of they were able to flip it pretty quickly. And I'm not standing here predicting or anything like that. I just think that we've got a good system. We got to do the right things consistently, stack good decisions on top of each other, and we've got a great opportunity this year. So,
do you see any similarities within those?
Not really. I'm not really big into comparisons.
You mentioned the rookies and their development at the end of the year. Would you like to see them maybe earlier in the year get a little more experience?
Whether I wanted to or not, it's not the way it went. So I got to watch those guys practice every day. I know how they work, and that's probably more important for me. They're about the right stuff, and I love seeing them play at the end. They got a big opportunity for them to give. They got to get a lot better this offseason too.
In the past, Gary's talked about how you were one of the people that really helped him get acclimated to Denver. When he was there as the head coach. From that previous experience, did you have any relationship with Klint? Kind of even back then, even when Gary was the head coach.
No, I didn't. Klint wasn't working in the building when I was there, and we interviewed Klint in 2023 in Tampa for the offensive coordinator job. That was the only time I
I'd ever met Klint. I actually didn't have his phone number when the whole process started, so I had Gary's and his brother, his youngest brother Klein I worked with he was a scouting assistant in Denver.
There are a lot of moving parts, I understand that, but when you look at JPJ kind of in this new scheme, do you expect him to stay at guard or center? What's your thought process?
We're going to be totally open-minded with the offensive line, probably outside of Colton. And, DJ's he started 34 games at right tackle too, but we got to just be open-minded and figure it out together.
John, what was it like working with Gary during your time at Denver? And what similarities do you see between Klint and Gary, not just from a football perspective, just as a person?
I was on the road a lot that year because I was a national scout, but I was around him enough. Just it's a great family. Gary's a wonderful teacher, very stoic, very even-keeled, but don't mistake that for the fiery competitor that burns inside of him. But I think Klint has some of those similarities too. I don't want to compare Klint to his dad. I don't think he would like me doing that. But I have so much respect for Gary. I actually think we've grown closer since I left and went there, and he's been a kind of a mentor for me. We've talked through different scenarios. He kind of helped me get ready for some GM interviews and just be confident in yourself. And just he has a great way about him, teaching, developing, and holding you to a high standard, but knowing that he cares about you.
And just from your observing the league, just when you look at teams that bring in top of the picks at quarterback, just what are some things you could take away from maybe things that teams maybe have hurt quarterback in terms of what kind of lessons have you learned in terms of bringing young quarterbacks in and developing them and putting pieces around them to help them succeed at the highest level?
Yeah, I think you've got to support them in many different ways. I mean, to think that you're just going to take a young quarterback anywhere and just start him week one and it's going to go great is naive, and you're not doing that kid any favors at all. I think probably more organizations failed those kids than those kids failed the organizations. And so whoever we got at the quarterback spot, it takes the whole building to support them because they have such a hard job. And we've got to be patient with young players in general. I think we saw that with some of our rookies this year. I mean, offensive linemen, it's a hard job to come in and start as a rookie. So those guys had to earn the chance to go play football. And we've got to support those guys and build them up and develop them.
There's been a phrase that you've been saying a lot, build this the right way in terms of how you want to construct this roster. What is a non-negotiable for you when you think about building this the right way?
Somebody that doesn't love football. It's way too hard of a game with way too big of expectations. Those guys just don't do it for me. And there's different examples of, than in colleges, that guys that maybe don't love it to the level that we want, and you're guessing a little bit as to what they're going to do when they come to the NFL and come to Vegas. But more of a conviction in the right kind of person than worrying about. I don't want to spend a lot of energy. I don't want our coaches have to spend a lot of energy trying to convince guys that they should be a good football player and they should meet their talent. I want those guys to have an expectation that I'm internally first, that I'm going to get everything out of myself, and then the coaches are here to help me do that, and the whole organization is here to help me do that.
Last one.
I know you kind of chuckled when you said it up there, but the quarterback being able to take a snap under center. I know Indiana was about 97% shotgun. Is that something you've had on your mind evaluating Mendoza?
Every quarterback that's come out probably in the past 7 to 8 years, it feels like it's very much a shotgun game in college, and you go back, they huddle a little bit more now because of the coach-to-player communication, but that was a thing that we would talk about too. Like, some of the quarterbacks had never been in a huddle, and how to lead a huddle and communicate in a huddle, and then taking a snap from under. It seems very remedial, but I grew up, everybody was under center all the time. You had to teach the center how to throw a shotgun snap between his legs. It's different now. So it's not anything that you can't work through. It's just you have to acknowledge that we're going to have to spend time with any of these young quarterbacks, teaching them the center quarterback exchange.
Richard's still earlier. Any progress on Daniel Carlson, or have you thought on him for next year?
We're talking to all of our guys' agents this week too. So we'll have a better feel coming out.
So there's GM John Spytek, not interested in quickly turning things around. Instead, he wants to turn it around the right way. Has had good conversations with Eric Stokes, a guy that we've talked about re-signing, thinking that the Raiders need to re-sign him. That's good that they've had good conversations. We'll see where that leads. Mendoza, talking about the national championship game. Nothing much as far as communication on Geno Smith, and I think that's kind of one of those tales that that it's sooner rather than later he's going to get released, similar to what we found out about Kirk Cousins being released from the Atlanta Falcons. Geno Smith is on his way out. But I thought it was cool that he also didn't blame him, put all the blame on him for the failures of the Raiders last season. There was a lot of wrong that went on with the team. He has belief in the young offensive linemen like Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. Obviously, they've got to go out there and earn a job. And JPJ, they're open-minded about his position. So don't get hell-bent on him being a center. Don't get hell-bent on him being a guard. That's going to be up to Rick Dennison. He is the offensive line coach. That's going to be up to Klint Kubiak. They're going to decide what best position fits JPJ. And I just hope that they figure out that position sooner rather than later so he can go there, he can work his tail off, and he can be the best guard or center that they decide that he's going to be. And obviously, you got to put a young quarterback in the position to succeed. It goes back to the 3 Ps that Daniel Jeremiah mentioned on his conference call that he had last Thursday. Play caller, protection, and playmakers. Play caller, protection, and playmakers. I actually saw him on Tuesday. He walked by while I was talking to Lindsay Rhodes from Sumersports.com, and she shouted him out. He came over to the table, and I said, hey, man, you're the guy who gave me the 3 Ps, play caller, protection, and playmakers. He threw his hand up. He was like, that's right. That's what you got to have for a young quarterback. So hopefully you enjoyed what you heard there from GM John Spytek. Good 10, 11 minutes of what he had to say on Tuesday off to the side with the local media. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple more great sponsors we have here on the show, and the first one is HomeChef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines. Dinner's a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where HomeChef comes in. HomeChef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door. Easy to follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, recipe ease, and it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your scheduled 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. Everything arrives pre-portioned, so there's less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. And the best part of it, saves time and money. HomeChef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. So for a limited time, HomeChef is offering all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, free dessert for life. You must be an active subscriber to receive that free dessert. I also want to tell you about Indeed-sponsored jobs. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And how about this? Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing the candidates who check all your boxes. All listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support the show by saying you heard it on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Again, Indeed-sponsored jobs. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? It's a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get into that, though, do want to thank you so much for making this the first listen of the day. Let's go ahead and start with the call from Missouri Raider. He's calling to talk about the Maxx Crosby situation, a little back and forth that we've had on the show, and says what he would do in the situation if it was him. Here's Missouri Raider.
Thank you, Missouri Raider. I'm listening to your show from a couple days ago, and one of the callers is asking about your reasoning when you said why trade Maxx Crosby or and I just want to let that caller, and then I'm sure you don't want a bunch of back and forth or anything like that, so no disrespect to anybody, but when you talk about why trade Maxx Crosby to a contender or whatever, like, honestly, I think it comes down to I love Maxx Crosby as much as anybody, but I love the Raiders more. So the Raiders should 100% do what's best for them and their organization. So if Maxx wants out and wants traded, whoever is going to give the Raiders the most in return is where I would trade him if I was running the organization. Love Maxx, want him to stay, but if he wants to go, I'm not going out of my way to try to trade him to a contender if it means less return value, less draft picks, less players, whatever. So no one player is above the shield, and it's okay that he wants to go win, but you've brought this up a number of times. Like, he signed a contract, then he signed a contract extension. If he wanted to go, he should have went. He should have gone. If he wants to go now, it's totally understandable. I would want to win too. I'd want to win and make the money that they're making. But, I'm doing whatever's the best for the Raiders. I'm not trading. I mean, if the Chiefs were offering the most draft capital in return, I'd probably decline that because I wouldn't be helping out the Chiefs in any way, shape, or form. But other than that, yeah, do right by the Raiders. And if that means trading them to a dog crap team because you're getting way more in return, well, sorry, see you, Max. Have fun over there. Again, I have loyalty to the Shield, not to any individual player. Whatever is going to help the team become a better team and hopefully bring us back a Super Bowl one day, that's what matters the most to me. So anyway, just wanted to kind of chime in there because everyone else is not speaking for the entire Raider Nation because I've been a fan for 40 years and I want what's best for the team, not what's best for each individual player necessarily. I hope that we can get both, of course. What's great for Max and great for the Raiders, but overall, whatever's best for the Raiders. Missouri Raider out.
Thanks so much for the call, my man. Appreciate you. And the thing is, I don't see any dog trash team that actually wants to make a trade for Max. I don't. It doesn't make any sense. If you're a bad team, like say the Jets, who got the number 2 overall pick, like why would you want to go out and get Maxx Crosby? Not saying he wouldn't be a great player for your team, but he's not going to put you over the top because you have so many holes similar to the Raiders. So it doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to go to a team like the Cowboys, right? A team that feels like that they're one Maxx Crosby away. A team like the Lions, a team like the Bears, a team like the Bills, right? Teams like that feel like Seahawks that are already there, been there, done that, right? Those kind of teams make sense as far as wanting Maxx Crosby and where he could play and have a chance to win. The Jets, teams in the top 10, even the Commanders, yeah, I don't think so. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So again, I just think that it's going to come down to a team that really wants him, that is a contender, that's willing to pay the price, and all of a sudden Maxx Crosby saying, yeah, I'd like to go as opposed to stay because I don't think I'm going to win here. And honestly, I've said it so many times, and I'll say it again until I'm proven wrong. I don't think Max goes anywhere. I think he's a Raider in 2026. That's just my gut feeling. Up next, got a text from Mark in South Carolina. Says, Q, another offseason approaches and a very long-term Raider loyalist. I put my faith in the Raider brass. They're going to do the job to bring a winner. Hopefully this year will be different. I'll say that it feels different this year. The anticipation that they'll make the right moves make me a bit nervous. If Max wants to move on or wants to stay, let's resolve it quickly. Either way, let's do right with him. A great draft will change our direction, and intelligent decisions on free agency will also help. I just want a nervous state turns to an exciting state. Thank you for all you do, Go Raiders. That's Mark from South Carolina. And look, free agency, I think he'll tell you a lot about what direction the team is going by what they do in free agency. They got a lot of salary cap space. They've got a lot of moves that they can make. And if you see them making the right decisions and bringing in the right talent at the right age, difference makers that can help them not for 1 year, but multiple years, unlike what they brought in last year, I think you can see this team go, all of a sudden have a little bit of sign of, I see the plan. I see the direction. Yeah. And multiple players will want to be a part of that, including Maxx Crosby. I think it's all part of his thinking of what he wants to see from this team and the direction that they're going. He wants to see them put it to paper and put it to work as opposed to just saying what they're going to do and giving them all these promises and then it not coming through. Like, oh, we're going to win 10 games this year. And then they only win 3. You know what I mean? Like that's what I think it's all about. But thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Got a call from Rahul in Phoenix. He's calling to talk about the Maxx Crosby situation, how he feels about it. Here he is, Rahul in Phoenix.
Hey, Q. It's Rahul from Phoenix. Just listened to the podcast at the gym, trying to get this working. Didn't do so good on the diet this weekend, but I was working this weekend, and as a result, I ate a lot of diet cafeteria food at the hospital, and I'm paying for it now. So I'm at the gym, listening to your podcast, and the Maxx Crosby thing is getting to the point of it's getting old, it's getting tiresome. At some point, I agree with you, the decision just needs to be made, but the Raiders should do what is right for the Raiders. I mean, the guy is a hell of a player. He's really our only good defensive player, if you think about it, like our only real true star on defense. Everything we do on defense will have to go through Max. You don't have a legit pass rusher. We're basically dead ducks back there. So I don't think there should be any sort of emphasis from our perspective to even consider a trade. We should be, our posture should be, we have no desire to trade. Even if Max wants to be traded, he is not the kind of person who will hold out. He's not the kind of person who will give less than for lesser. The guy still wants to play, and I think he will. So there's really no emphasis on our part to trade him. The one thing is that we could get value if we do trade him. But how much value are we going to get? You know, I think if we're going to trade him, it has to be for a big price. But our posture should simply be we have no intention to trade him, regardless of his motivation. He has one more year on his contract, doesn't play it out. So that's how I feel about it. I think most of Raider fans kind of feel that way, but anyway, I just want a decision to be made on this. Getting old. One love.
Rahul, thanks for the call, my man. And yeah, I mean, I think the way that you feel is the way that the Raiders feel. I don't think they want to trade him at all. And I don't think either side has come to a conclusion, but I don't think it's been ruled out either, as I mentioned at the top, right? I've been as a matter of fact, as I said at the beginning of this segment, that he's going to be a Raider in 2026. That's my gut feeling. We'll see how it plays out. They're not going to give him away, that's for sure. So if a team wants him, they're going to have to come correct with some real deal, draft capital to make the Raiders say, okay, let's think about it. It's not going to be something that, here's a first and a third, and yeah, let's get Maxx Crosby. That's just not going to happen. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Got a text from Montgomery Raiders. Says, hey, Q, hope everything is all good. I didn't get the notification for another episode today, but hopefully it's just a busy schedule in Indy. I got two things for you. I see why people would want DC4 back in the silver and black as a vet backup or maybe start a couple games, me included. But taking emotions out of it, I do think the smart move is to have Aiden O'Connell in the role and save money too. I see people wanting Omar Cooper or Surratt to make Fernando more comfortable. Well, what about Pat Coogan, the center from Indiana? That seems like a good idea to pair the center and quarterback. I don't know what his draft value is, but I think it'd be a good idea for the Raiders to get him. Let me know your thoughts, Q. Appreciate all the hard work you and Ari put in. Raiders, that's from Montgomery Raider. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. And, yeah, I think Derek Carr to the Raiders is a bad idea. Honestly, I think he'll end up in Minnesota. A lot of people around the scouting combine have been walking around saying that Minnesota is the move. He's going to end up there, so we'll see. I don't think it makes any sense just because it would be a big divide. And the Raiders, right now at this stage of the game, the last thing they need is a divide. So I don't think that they would need that. Start Aiden O'Connell if they need to. Go out and get another veteran if they feel like they have to. But I think Aiden O'Connell would do just fine. I'm one of those guys that have talked about Cooper. I'm one of those guys that have talked about Surratt. If they decide that they want to go in the direction of bringing in Coogan, the center from Indiana, they feel highly about him and he can fit in with what they're trying to do on the offensive line, by all means, bring him in. But I think that they're going to go big game hunting when it comes to free agency and try to go get their center. But, again, we'll see what happens moving forward. But it's not a bad idea. That is for sure. You can't just go get the whole Indiana team, but I can see them going and making a move, get a guy or two, just, again, to put around Fernando Mendoza to make him a little bit more comfortable. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's show. Got a call from Raider Educator in the 925, and he always does a really good job educating us, so we'll definitely get to him tomorrow. We'll also meet with Klint Kubiak a little bit later on this morning. Look forward to that conversation. It will not be at the podium, but we'll be there in the spot to be, and, of course, we'll pepper him with a bunch of questions and just get his thoughts, as this will be the second time we meet with him since he's taken over as the head coach of the Silver and Black. And, of course, we'll be back here tomorrow on the show. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. More importantly, as always, just win, baby.